I've titled today's talk Future Government because I do think AI is a pretty significant inflection point. And, you know, we see this not just in government, but in many industries. Technology has typically been adopted in relatively evolutionary and incremental ways. But we still think about silos. We still think with a paper-based metaphor. We still think with a transactional mindset. And AI is really going to force us to finally break down some of that thinking. And we see that AI really is at the heart of digital disruption. And we've been talking about digital transformation, digital disruption, going digital, being digitally determined. These are all descriptors that we use to kind of talk about this world ahead. But to give you an idea how quickly it's changing, all right, in the 3 to 4 year time frame here, we see most commercial enterprises will have dipped their toes in the water. Certainly for those of you that consume services in the cloud, 75% or more of that IT is going to be provisioned, operated, managed, and monitored by AI. And most IT operations will be fully supplanted by AI as a matter of this transformation. We see the emergence now of something emotional AI, of being able to understand not just the communication, but the context, the stress in the voice, the stress inherent in the video, the understanding of the truthfulness of the emotional state of the individual we're interacting with. And this is making a real difference in what we can do with AI in areas like behavioral health and in customer service. And then we see this rise of AI-based automation will drive wholly new business processes, and not just in commercial businesses, but wholly new government processes, wholly new ways to think about regulation, to think about operations. And why this change? Well, because really, it's all about using data to make better decisions. And when you think about that, you realize that the way you think about IT, the way that we've been taught to think about platforms and architectures, really has to change. Because in this transformed enterprise, what we're trying to focus on is the creation of what, for lack of a better term, we could call an intelligent core. An aggregation of information that we can now begin to use for machine learning, for deep learning, for analysis, for understanding. But this is a big change. You notice that on this picture we don't have things called network and compute and storage. It's kind of assumed. We don't have differences between input and output because the input to this process immediately becomes the output for an offer. And whether that offer was accepted or not, whether that transaction moved forward or not, that becomes data as well. So we're capturing all of the information. And it's, you know, it's a complete change in how we think about this ecosystem of information. If we broaden it out, what we see is that there's a lot going on here, right? Because we have new sources of data. It's not just people. It's assets. It's connected processes. It's APIs. It's chatbots. It's the AR/VR session. It's the haptics. It's the simulator. All of this now contributes. Okay, all of this is now monitored and managed. And increasingly, it's about creating engagements and experiences that lead to better outcomes. Right? How do we understand where we are at a point in the process and introduce that missing piece of data to improve the quality of the decision? How do we provide that actionable insight right there at the point where it makes a difference? And again, we're going to wind up talking about completely different ways to look at architecture and organizations because it's not about operating infrastructure anymore. It's about data. And it's about what we can do with that data. What is the opportunity? And also, what is the risk? And as any new platform, we find that it's not just about the upside, but there's significant downside here too. And we'll talk a lot in the upcoming event about ethics and morals and how do we guide our developers, and our business process experts in ways that reduce the risk and improve the value to our constituents.